Well, hey, everybody, welcome back once again and Happy New Year. This is the first live stream of 2023. Wow, goes by fast. Every year seems a little bit shorter than the one before. But yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. Well, we got a pretty good crowd here on the call. I'm sure we'll have some people over in the Facebook group. There's always some that just kind of show up and just watch the stream and don't actually come into the call, but that's okay too. Hey, we've got a real treat for you tonight. Bill Dobman has agreed to be our speaker for this evening, and he's going to share some, pearls of wisdom. I don't know exactly what topic he's got on his mind to talk about, but if you guys haven't had a chance to hear Bill Dobman talk, you're definitely in for a treat. Bill Dobman and his family are the owners of My Shower Door over there in Florida. I can't keep track of how many locations they've got. They've probably added one since the last time we talked, but I'm going to let him be the one to tell you all about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Bill Dobman.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Yahoo, right? Yahoo. Hey, first of all, I got to thank Chris for putting this whole thing together all these years and staying with it. And look at the group that you've got on a Wednesday night across the country. That's very impressive. So, Chris, really good job. And when he talked to everybody last week, he was talking about trying to put a new excitement into this. Because, if you do the same thing for 3-4 years, you get into a rut. So I offered to help him, and I know he's got others that will also join as we go along. But it's good to get different perspectives from around the country, different size companies, for all different topics. I guess before I get started, a few guys knew that this was going to happen, and they inboxed me during the week just to touch on a couple of things. And then I really like what Brandon put out there for a vote this week. We had 146 votes on topics to talk about. Brandon, thanks for doing that. That really was a help.
Yeah, no worries.
The obvious winner of what most people want at 31% was how to scale the business, which I saw your comments with Joe Flynn earlier. A lot of these things are intertwined. You scale when you do a lot of the other things correctly, including social media, branding, design and estimating, if you do it right. Obviously, if you maximize your profits, you're going to be able to scale also because it does take money. We'll talk about a lot of that tonight. Anytime you have questions during this, and if you feel like you might be interrupting, just use, if everyone knows how to use that chat feature on the bottom, open up the chat. You can type it in directly to me or to everybody in the group. Type your question, and I'll just keep checking on it periodically. If for any reason I don't check on it quick enough, Chris, go ahead and interrupt and say, hey, we got a new chat there, and we'll get to it. So even guys that aren't on this call that are listening and want to ask a question, go ahead and put it in the chat on the bottom of the screen.
Awesome.
So I guess a lot of people want to know just a little bit of background, where we got started, why we got started in the business, where we're located, what our geographic territories are. I'll touch on that for maybe 2-3 minutes, and then we'll get into the topics that people really want to talk about. So as Chris said, my name is Bill Dobman. I'm the president and founder of My Shower Door. I was formerly part of the Mr. Shower Door group. Tom Whitaker has that out of Norwalk, Connecticut. I am from Western Massachusetts, a city called Springfield, Massachusetts. And I was the first one to buy into Tom Whitaker's license agreement. A license agreement is not a franchise. You get to use the name of the company, and you get to do a few other things, but it is not a franchise. Tom had 6 license agreements throughout the country. And as it went along, it just didn't do well. I was the only one that was paying him royalties that were due to him. And that word royalties is what really scared him out of continuing the licensing, because once you start bringing in royalties, then the government starts thinking that you are a franchise and you have to file all sorts of paperwork and compliance issues with the government. And seeing that I was the only one paying and he ended up chasing others for money, he decided to dissolve the licensing agreement with everybody. So we all had to go through name changes. Scared me because we were Mr. Shower Door for 15 years in Massachusetts and Northern Connecticut. When we moved to Florida, we were Mr. Shower Door until 2010. So I opened up in Florida in 2003. In 2010, Tom sent a letter out to all of the license holders that he was no longer going to renew anybody's license, and we all had to go through a name change. He was very gracious. I asked him to send me a letter that we could post on our website and be a little bit of proactive about it so that people didn't say, or our competitors say, oh, why are they going through a name change? Are they going through a lawsuit? Or were they going out of business? You know, I'd be skeptical of working with these guys. Look at, they're changing their name. So we worked out a really nice agreement with Tom. He gave us a year and a half to phase out our name. Phase out of his name and generate our own. We had company meetings probably for 3 months to come up with the new name. And fortunately, Keith was out golfing with a guy that used to work for Lee Iacocca in Detroit. If you know, Lee Iacocca was president of Chrysler Motors. And this guy that we met was his marketing manager. And they were golfing, and Mr. Shower Door is capital M, small r, shower door. And he says, I got it. He says, let's be capital M, capital Y, shower door. It's more personalized. It gets rid of the Mr. You don't have to do a lot of signage changes on your building. You'll have to change one letter, and we could change the colors so it doesn't confuse the public. And it worked out really well. Actually, for most people in Naples, it was seamless. They didn't even know that there was a name change. We got all worked up and nervous about it, thinking that somebody was coming into the area and paid them a lot of money to take the name Mr. Shower Door. That's not what happened at all. To this day, we stay very close friends with Tom Whitaker. Any of you in the Northeast, he's out of Norwalk, Connecticut, and anybody of you in the Northeast knows Tom and knows what a good business person he is. And he's just an absolute great contact. I'm going to try and get him on this call some week. I think you'll enjoy it. So anyhow, we had Mr. Shower Door up in Western Massachusetts and Northern Connecticut until 2002. I ended up selling that, and it's now Oasis Shower Door. He also had to go through the name change from Mr. Shower Door. And Oasis has grown in Massachusetts very well and does a lot of union work, especially in the Massachusetts, Boston area for high rises, hotels, and things of that nature. But Oasis is also doing a very, very good job. When I started the business, I started off doing closet shelving. We were the first closet made dealer in Western Massachusetts and Northern Connecticut. And for those of you who may be familiar with that or maybe not familiar, closet made is that white wire racking that many builders use in tract homes for hanging clothes and shelves for linen closets and pantries. And I had built that business to the #1 closet business in Massachusetts and Northern Connecticut in a span of 8 years. Now, this is before Lowe's and Home Depot even got started. And we just did it through a builder network. And it's much like Mike does at Royal Glass. We were the guys that did the closet shelving, toilet paper holders, towel bars, medicine cabinets, numbers, door numbers for the house, a lot of the specialty items that builders just didn't even want to bother with. And then because we were doing that, we were efficient for the builders. 2 of them came to me and said, hey, I wish you could do shower doors. So the first thing about it. So a mutual friend got me in touch with Tom Whitaker, who had told him he was ready to start growing his business and expanding it and getting into this license agreement. And I connected with Tom back in 2000 and let's think about that. No, that was 1986. It was 1986 I connected with Tom to start doing shower doors. I sold the business up there in 2003 and moved to Florida. So for about 15 years, I had Mr. Shower Door up there. And then in 2010, we had to change our name to My Shower Door. When we changed our name, we had Naples, Fort Myers, and Sarasota locations. We had 3 locations. Fast forward to today, we're at 9 shower door locations, and we just opened our first architectural showroom, which Keith runs, and you probably watch him on LinkedIn or Facebook, called My Architectural Glass. And that one specializes in wine closets, office partitions, glass railing systems, glass flooring systems, and some specialty mirror work. So that's where we are today. We have scaled from a family business of the 3 of us, Keith, my other son, Doug, and myself, and I should say my wife, so 4 of us in 2003. And as of Friday, we were still sitting at 185, so 185. And that includes our glass manufacturing plant, D3 Glass, that we opened in 2013. Prior to that, we were buying our glass from Coral Industries out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The McAllisters became very good friends of ours, and quickly we were their #1 customer for heavy glass. Prior to finding Coral, when I was up in Massachusetts, I was using Oldcastle, or back then it was called Temp Glass, out of Perrysburg, Ohio. I used J. Berkowitz Company out of New Jersey. When we moved to Florida, I tried Oldcastle Tampa. I tried Guardian out of Tampa. I tried Oldcastle out of Miami. They were not good. They couldn't get a sliding door right. They couldn't get the holes right. They couldn't get the sizes right. They were totally inconsistent. Terrible job shipping. We were getting damaged often. It got to the point we were buying so much glass from Coral that Doug decided to start running the numbers and see what it would cost for us if we bought a cutting table, a polisher, a washer, a CNC machine, and a tempering oven, and see if we could start fabbing the glass ourselves. At that point, our business was doing about $2.5 to $3 million a year in sales. The numbers made sense based on what we were buying from Coral. So we expanded the building that we were in, and we brought in the equipment. Doug and Keith went to the National Glass Association, cut a deal, and within 6 months, all of the equipment, including the Italian oven, was delivered to us, set, and operational. That lasted about 3 years in that building, and we were busting at the seams. Every day we had to store glass outdoors and roll it in as we needed it. We didn't know the first thing about manufacturing. We knew what quality glass looked like, but as far as the process and procedure and the software associated with doing it smoothly and tracking station by station and operation by operation, we had to do it manually, and it was an absolute nightmare. But that's all part of the growth pains. And if you're going to grow, you need to learn, you need to make those mistakes. And then as you develop software, you know what you need. You know what the important numbers are that need to track. How many panels a day? How many inches per polish on a shift? How many holes can you drill in how many panels of glass per day? These are all metrics we had to keep so that we could see if our efficiency was good. Then we got to the point of growth where we had to bring in a controller, a guy that's really good with the numbers. Up until that point, Donna and I were doing everything from estimating. Well, not everything. Doug and Keith were doing quite a bit, but we were doing all the office work. We were doing the payroll. We were doing invoicing, estimating, moving money, dealing with government associations like licensing, insurance. So we were doing the strategic and compliance part of it. Keith was doing sales and installation. Doug was doing installation and then designing and operation and management of the D3 manufacturing. Again, that started in 2013. Our growth has been upward every single year since I started with Tom Whitaker, every single year, our revenue has increased. Now, our profits didn't always increase, and that brings you to one of your topics here, maximizing profits, learning your efficiencies. So we'll get to that because, again, I learned it the hard way. We were doing higher volume, but less net profit at the end. Decisions had to be made on what products to carry. We completely eliminated doing the 1/4-inch glass. So we're doing 0 1/4-inch clear glass. The profits weren't there. Home Depot and Lowe's were opening up and we were competing on the do-it-yourself market. We figured that's not something we really even want to compete with. And we really don't want to associate our company and our brand, and we'll hit on branding also, with the Home Depot and Lowe's. Both of those companies approached us to be their premier installation company, and we opted out with a professional courtesy. We'll pass on this opportunity. And I really think that was a wise move. If we were going to build our brand to give a quality product, we couldn't have it associated with a Lowe's or a Home Depot because their brands don't equal quality. They equal price and volume. That wasn't our business model. So it really wasn't a good strategic fit. So that's the synopsis of where we're at. Yes, I was doing installations of shower doors. I didn't want to, but I did out of necessity. Fortunately, Keith and Doug were at the age where they were very good with hands-on. And then we started growing and getting employees, and the lead installers would teach the apprentice installers. And when we finally built the new building, we developed a training facility there. So all of the installers will have hands-on training, both in handling glass, caulking, cutting metals, doing layout, adjusting doors, doing service calls, caulking, sealing, trimming gaskets, everything necessary so that they don't have to do their learning out in the field in front of the customer's eyes. Nothing irritates me more than going to a grocery store and seeing a brand new employee thrown on the register and no help around. It's not fair to that employee, and that's not a roadmap for success. If you need to build culture, and we talked about this last week, culture is very important. You have to give people tools to succeed. A lot of that is training. Every single topic that Brandon put on there, you can put into training, whether it's social media, branding, scaling. You look at every single one of them. If you don't train your employees right, you're not going to be able to scale, and you certainly aren't going to want them to promote your brand if they're not doing it right. So many of these things are intertwined, and if you do it right, you will grow. You'll grow organically. If you need to push it, then we get into marketing, whether it's social media, paid advertising, or just what they call guerrilla marketing, being clever, placing press releases, getting in front of the eyes of people in clever ways, doing a good job branding on your trucks, making sure the name of your company is very clear to the customer that sees your trucks, what you do. I've had talks with a few of these members that are on here that if you want to grow your shower door business, you need to have shower doors written in the name of your company somewhere. And I know Billy has done that. I know Adrian has done that. And both of them have been very successful in doing that. And it certainly helps with awareness. Guys that have computer backgrounds, I believe, Brandon, you said you were either a programmer or engineer. You know that the human mind is very much like a computer's mind. And if you put your branding out there so the human mind will easily recall it, then by having shower doors in your name, they're going to think of you quicker than they will ABC Glass or Next Door Glass. I don't care if it's Chris Phillips shower door, as long as the word shower door is in your name, then they will think of you before your other competitors in the glass business. That was a huge marketing and branding tip that really will help you escalate your shower door business. If you want to stay as a full glass company, then do it the way you are. And shower doors is a portion of your business. And that's okay if that's what you want to be. But most of the guys that I know that are on this call are doing it because shower doors are an integral part of the profits of their company. And as we talked about last week, if you're going to work, you have a limited amount of time in your life and you want to accumulate as much money as you can in that short period of time, you would want to spend your time doing the things that are most profitable for you. And most people that I talk to, the shower door part of the glass business is the most profitable if you're running your business right. So before I get into the topics that Brandon had put, I've got my notes here. Are there any questions? I didn't see anything in the chat and I've been checking. So if nobody has any questions, then we can go right into those topics.
Anybody
Well,
have
good.
any specific questions for Bill Dobman? I mean, don't always get a chance to ask, someone like Bill a question directly. So this would be a great opportunity.
No,
I've
and
got a
that,
question.
I have one.
Keith has one.
who's that
I'm
voice?
curious. What's the over under on 25 on how many frameless heavy glass enclosures you've installed? Because I heard you say you were installing. I'm just curious. I can't remember how many.
I don't think you were born yet, first of all.
Yeah, right.
Not many, Keith. As soon as I could talk
Yeah,
you into
sure.
nothing
I'm
to
not
do
going to
it, I was
suck the
done.
air out of your night tonight. So go ahead. Unbelievable.
Not many, that's for sure. But who was the one who made the trips down to Tom Whitaker to learn everything? Thank
As
you.
you were.
Thank you.
I noticed that he avoided actually answering the question. So that was pretty good, Bill. You've got a future in politics for sure.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Hey, Bill, I want to ask you, I had mentioned this to you before, because the jump from having one location to deciding that you're going to have that next spot, what was the kind of the trigger that started that? And then what did you use to determine like geographic area? Like how far out do we want to go? How far do we want to cover? How far away do we want to get? What was the thought pattern in that, if you can?
Yeah, it's a great question because Southwest Florida is pretty condensed area, right? But we are a seasonal area, or we were until recently, very much seasonal. But if you know the distance between Naples and Fort Myers, it's, between 30, 35 minutes away. And then we started looking at how many doors were we installing up in that market. Now, it was kind of funny. We were finding that people in Fort Myers did not want to shop with companies in Naples, only because Naples had that stigmatism that they were so much money. It's so, high and mighty. So people in Fort Myers really didn't want to go to Naples. And we found that out from customers. And that was one of the things that we knew, that we were losing business in a market that was relatively close to us. So that was our first venture out of the Naples area. The second one was licensing. Back then, you had to get a license for every county that you worked in. So Naples is in Collier County, Fort Myers in Lee County. So we had to get licensing for that. And that's one of the reasons our competitors weren't going into multiple locations. They didn't want to have to get licensing in multiple locations. Then the state of Florida came up with a category that you could get a state license to work anywhere in the state as long as you were registered and you cleared your background check, criminal history check, financial background check, and you took a contracting class. So you had to take testing as well. And that deterred quite a few people from even applying for licensing out of their own county. But that gave us the opportunity to do that. And then our growth was exponential. Once we figured out what we could do into Fort Myers, then that was a half hour to, like I said, to 45 minutes difference from Naples, Fort Myers. Then Sarasota was next after that, and that was an hour. But we started looking at the sales. We were advertising in those other markets, Billy, and we were getting business. And we said to ourselves, how much more business if we actually had a location there? We felt at the time that people would do business with people that had a brick and mortar store there. Now, a lot of things change over time, especially doing internet selling. Right now, so many people are, keep in mind, that was like 2003, 2004, and the internet wasn't anything like it is now. But people wanted to come in and feel and touch and operate those doors, and showrooms were the way to go. But as we built up our business in Naples, then we wanted to give people within the company an opportunity to grow. And that was another way of doing it. So when you have a good sales rep, an outside sales rep and an inside sales rep, that's all we really needed to open the next showroom, because the installation was still coming out of the main area, which ended up being in South Fort Myers. So it was pretty much central to Naples and Fort Myers. As we went to Sarasota, we went into a little different business model. We had glass shipped directly to the Sarasota location. They held it there. And that's typical model of most glass shops, where you would order from a glass company, receive your truck. You know, we were able to do it a couple of times a week as opposed to once a week like we were getting from Coral. Once you get past that first hurdle, it does get easier. And as you start getting more and more employees and you cross-train those employees, it gets easier again. They're big, you know, we've had challenges. You know, you open up a store and you think you have the right management in place, and either they quit or you realize that they're not as good as you thought they were and you had to let them go. And we've always found that if you can promote from within, people that know the company, know the culture, and know the product, it's a much easier way to grow their business. So we always use Naples, Fort Myers as that home base. Did I answer that for you?
Yeah. The trigger that pushed you, it sounds like to me, if I understand right, the trigger that pushed you past that one location, because that's kind of the hub where everybody sits. You either have kind of a small one location or a big one location, and then when do you pull the trigger on that next spot? It sounds like that it was, people. So you get the right people and you need to move them up, and that's something that I've been looking at. Is I have young guys that I want, at 25, 30, 35, 40, I want them to progress. And that's hard sometimes to do in the glass industry, is give opportunity to a young guy that you're promising opportunity to, and actually have options down the road for them. So that's something that I think you touched on that I'm taking from that is, and that's something I've been thinking about, is I've got good young guys. I don't want them to be stagnant and not look at having options down the road. I don't want them to be 35, 45 and still just have the only option of being a lead installer, because it's either you go to sales or you're a lead. That's like you can't go any higher. So that's what I'm kind of hearing, is you get good people that you feel like you want to grow with, or they want to grow with you, and they're a part of the team. They're beating the same drum you're beating. Then that gives the opportunity to do so and allows you to grow, and better, kind of better what you're doing.
Without a doubt. One of the things we learned, Bill, you start investing in your employees, right? The goal is you work for them. And our job as owners is to get good people, train them, but the most important thing is to keep them, because you lose more money retraining new people. And if you train them to the point where they can go out on their own and compete against you, is a difficult thing as well. So as we started to grow, after we went to Sarasota and we went into Tampa, we started bringing in key employees with ownership and getting them ownership in those places. Even if it's 10 or 15% of the ownership, they now, as it becomes successful, they work hard like it's their own business. They'll do those Saturday or Sunday appointments. They'll stay late and get jobs done because they're an owner. You don't always get that from all salaried people. And if you do, that's one thing that's always going to eat at them. Like, I'm putting in all this thing, but what am I benefiting? I'm making an overtime rate, but I have nothing at the end of the day. So we developed a plan as we open new stores to get more and more employees into ownership. And that's a big deal, because then they become loyal. They do the job as if you would be doing it yourself. Ultimately, we still have the final say because our shares are greater, but they do benefit. As the company does well, they do well. And that's a big deal. And that's how you keep employees for the long term. There is a message in the chat that I'll refer to is from Justin Lowry. Justin, I don't know you, or I don't think we've met yet, so thank you for this. It says, how long do you train your guys before sending them out on the job? Now, I'm assuming, Justin, you're asking about installation guys, or are you asking about sales guys? Because sales and product knowledge, quite honestly, takes much longer, although installation, we can teach them to do sliders and single doors and door and panels relatively quickly in the training center. But even after they get out of our training center, they're still working with an experienced installer for a while. Generally, before they're running a truck on their own, they have to go through some testing in the shop, not only paper testing, but practical testing, putting in odd angle doors. We will give them glass that intentionally doesn't fit so that they can figure out where the problem is. Was it a measuring problem? Was it a glass manufacturing problem? Was it a layout problem? So we try and replicate as many things that you would run to in the field, making your installations go long. Generally, before somebody's out on his own, it could be anywhere from 6 months to a year, and being able to do things up into really high-end customs. Even then, we need guys that are what we call level 4 and level 5 installers that have done that for a number of years. But if it's for sliders, single doors, door and panels, spray panels, and panel door panels in line, they could be out on their own, depending on their skill level when they came to us, between 6 months and a year. You said I mentioned them to caulk. How long are they in training, basically learning these things? In the training facility, a lot of the guys will learn to caulk by taping it first. That's the simple way to do it. Tape off both the wall and the glass, run the bead, tool it in, and then peel the tape off. As they get good, we try and have them try their hand doing it freestyle without any taping, or we just give them the quick Chris Phillips way and just don't do any caulking at all.
There you go.
Hey, Bill. Back to the showrooms. So have you always had a showroom? Have you always had a showroom is one question. But also, have you always had a showroom in high traffic areas? It sounds like I know some of your showrooms are in high traffic areas next to high-end restaurants, that sort of thing. If you changed models from not having a showroom in a high traffic area to having a showroom in a high traffic area, how did that change your numbers? Did you see a huge growth?
Great question. Brian, it's a great question, and it depends on the market, but we've run into the situation where we went into a very high-end location and it was not the right fit for us. Our basic one in our business model is putting a showroom in we like Lexus to do our demographics for us, and we kind of followed along there. If we could get a location somewhere near a Lexus dealership, we found that the customers that buy Lexuses generally buy frameless shower doors. That's in your buying thing. So you start looking at the clientele that you are trying to sell to. If they had a nice high-end car, I found that they just didn't feel comfortable going into an industrial park where the granite guys, stone guys, tile, where most of those contractors work, because they end up getting nails in their tires, dirt on their car. And quite honestly, the wives didn't feel comfortable driving to those showrooms. But if you were out on a main street, high visibility, we like using it on a main road with a stoplight. So if they're sitting there, we felt that it's worth paying the extra money in rent than it is putting it into advertising. So we became the destination by putting it there, and that business model works well. Now, in some of the cities we went to, the rent was enormous. It just didn't make sense. So then we tried the other model, going into a off the beaten path location, and then To get people there, we had to do advertising or in-home consultation. And it works, but it doesn't work as well. It works better on a high volume, nice area where people have the comfort level. And the key to the success is getting people to the showroom so that they can actually feel and touch and ask questions to what they're buying, where you can show them the difference between regular clear glass and low iron clear glass. You can show them the hardware and what's the difference, what's the secret sauce that my shower doors has other than the other guys in our area of what they're installing. As soon as they come through the showroom, if it's done right, they know that they're dealing with a real player in the game, not just a guy working out the back of his truck.
Right.
And there's a much higher comfort level to the higher end clients. Matter of fact, they will pay more. They want to pay more to make sure that they get a competent subcontractor or technician in your home. They will pay more for that. And they have to, because we're paying a higher rent. But it works out. And it scared me to death, Brian, the first couple that we opened with the high rents. But it's the best move we ever made.
Yeah, and that was the follow-up to it. You already answered it, which is, do you feel like the jump in rent made was justified, and you were able to cover that? And you already said you did, yeah.
Yes. The high-end clients that we're going after, if you know the main streets in your area that they go up and down all the time, they can't help but see it. They're going to think, when do I need a shower door? Oh, I remember seeing it right there on Route 41 or right there on Route 32 or wherever you live, They'll remember that. Get your signage out there. Don't get it yourself in a shopping center where all these trees are blocking their view to you. Make sure you pay for the podium sign that most shopping centers have, and get a color that stands out so they'll see it. Don't be afraid to be different. Don't get buried in with everybody else.
Thanks.
I saw Greg. Everybody knows Greg. He's here from Knoxville, and he says, "Can you elaborate on the capital requirements to grow?" That's another great question, because growth requires capital. Capital meaning money and revenue. I can't emphasize enough getting a good banking relationship going, no matter what size business you have. That's where most smaller businesses start to fall apart, is they don't concentrate enough on that part of their business, the financials, the books, looking at P&L statements, cash flow requirements. How many of your customers are 30 days out, 60 days out, 90 days out? Are you following up on receivables? Those type of things. But to grow your business does require capital. I mean, just to get a second truck, get second tools, pay extra help, and make sure you have enough business to keep them going. You may have to advertise more to make sure that there's enough business to justify having the extra help on board. Greg got into the point where he's doing tempering also. So once you get to that level, it's a huge capital expense, and you have to have a great relationship with your bank. The bank is going to ask for your tax returns. They're going to ask for your P&Ls, your balance sheet. So you got to make sure that you concentrate on your profitability, because they will loan you money because they want to make money off you, as long as they know that you're making money, and you have to show profits. There are people that I know in small businesses that their whole goal is to show little profits or no profits, because that's what taxes are based on. And that is a smart business move, unless you want to grow. If you want to grow and you need that capital from banks, then you want to show profitability. And unfortunately, you have to pay taxes too, unless you are reinvesting in equipment where you can write that off. It gets into a whole nother thing, but there's many times that you're profitable, and when you make big investments, that chews up your profits, and you won't have to pay tax. You'll eventually will, because now you're going to make more money as you invest. So either you go ahead and invest more and grow quicker, or pay the tax now. But that's a great question, because growth requires capital and good managing of that capital.
Bill, I have a question, please.
Hey, Vidor. Yeah.
Okay, so I seen that your sales, I'm sorry, your retail sales business model mostly come from your own stores, right?
Yes.
Your So do you also have like design hardware stores that you sell through any other stores? Like I'll say like I don't know, I don't think so you guys have there. But I mean like stores, showrooms that sells like also tiles, tubs, hardware, shower
No,
hardware.
like I don't wholesale to other stores that install our products. We install our own products. So I don't do it like a cash and carry through or, drop it off to, let's say, Home Depot or somebody smaller like Ace Hardware. No, we don't do that
No, I
because,
mean it's more like designer stores.
well, we put displays in designer stores and the designers
Mhm.
help sell our products, but we do the installation of that. They
Mm-hmm.
give the customer our name and we have professional discounts that we apply to,
Mm.
yes, designers, interior decorators, things of that nature. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank
We
you.
find
Mm.
that we do well servicing obviously new home builders, especially custom homes, but also the remodelers. You're going to find that there's 10, 15, 20 remodelers in your area that specialize in doing bathrooms and they need a quick turnaround. They do. Some remodelers will only do spray panels. So that way you can have the glass ready for them in advance when they're ready. It depends what their business model and who their customer is. But there are some
Mhm.
that will do spray panels only, some that will only do sliders because if the doors and if the opening is an inch less than usual, you just have the doors overlap a little bit more. But the higher end ones go with the door and panel door panel, steam showers. Those are great contacts to have because a lot of repeat business. I
Mhm.
also found that by joining your local building association and getting involved or getting somebody to those meetings really help. You go to the meeting, just don't go to a meeting and not hang around. You have to network. And
Mhm.
that plays into that whole giving ownership to some of your employees because the average employee, the average one, doesn't network anywhere near what Keith and I do. If we go into a room, we're shaking hands and talking to people all night long. The average employee doesn't do that. But if they have ownership, now they have a whole different reason to do it.
Mhm.
Now, you would think a sales guy would have a big reason to do it. They get commission, right?
Mhm.
And they may, but they just don't do it with the same vigor that Keith and I would do it at.
I bet so. Right, thank you.
I can't believe we're flying. We're at 9:13. I haven't hit the topics yet.
I saw there was another question Shannon had for you.
Yeah. How does the decor and more relationship? I don't know decor and more unless you're thinking of floor and decor.
Yeah,
And
that's the one. I was thinking, I typed that as I was thinking that might have been what Victor was kind of asking about, was that selling out of those stores. I thought maybe that's where he was going with it.
there's another person that kind of landed that whole deal nationally. He's based out of South Florida. Most of the ones I've heard about are not doing well. They're not happy. They have these kiosks that don't seem to work. Most of the stores that we stop in on anyhow, just to introduce ourselves, do not recommend them. They're just not happy with how it all lays out. They have to try and find somebody locally to install it. They were doing a lot of it until they found out the guys installing it were not licensed to install it and had no right doing it. In Florida, it was a real problem. I don't know how it is in other states, but that wasn't our business model. And from the stores that I've stopped in, and everyone I've stopped in has been in Florida, they were not happy with the store managers on the local level were not happy with the arrangement at all. And if we had a store in their area, they would recommend us anytime. So if you have one in your area, I would say stop in and make an introduction and offer the local expertise that you have. And if you have licensing that even, or if licensing is required in your area, that makes you even more of a professional and one that they would be more comfortable recommending.
Nice.
All right. Well, Brandon went out of his way to make this list, and I can't believe we went 45 minutes already. So the number one thing is how to scale. And I think we've talked on that, at least the question that Billy asked. But if it seems like people here want to scale their business, and I got to say, everything is about training, 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 whether it's sales, installation, soft skills, negotiating skills, training them how to do social media posts. We've even slipped from where we do. We used to do a lot of social media posts, then we've slipped, and we're making that a priority in 2023 to try and keep up with Keith's pace on architectural. You'll notice that he does a great job with architectural, and we're a much bigger company than what he's got, and we're not even close to what he's doing. So we're going to make a big push this year to catch up to that. Design and estimating is another one where it all comes down to training. You have to train your salespeople to put order inputs in the way everybody in the company can read them. I mean, we've grown the company where we have order input people. So the takeoff sheet that gets done at the house, or the takeoff form, if it's done electronically, has to be fed into the office so that they can start creating the work order, pulling the inventory. In other words, hinges, handles, clips, clamps, sweeps. We pre-pull that for the installers. So the day of installation comes around, I don't want installers going into the warehouse and starting to pull their own hardware. That's the last thing. Now, I used to do that early on, and that just bit me in the rear. So we have a dedicated person that pulls that hardware and assigns it to that work order. But the estimating all has to be done the same way so that we have that process set up. So when order entry sees it, they're going to start with what type of hinges, what finish, how many. Then we go into the handles. Then we go into the hardware, whether it's clamps, clips, or channel, or none. And they put that all on the work order. So when it goes out into the warehouse, we've already got it assigned and put aside for that customer. If it's special order, meaning vibrant brush bronze with specialty hardware, then that goes to our purchasing, and we make sure we secure that. Now, we've tried to order enough in advance so that we don't have to order onesies, twosies. We've got a good relationship with all of the major suppliers of the hardware that are not our own hardware. We don't sell enough of those, like vibrant brush bronze is a good example. I don't sell enough to stock a lot of that. So we would use, outside suppliers for that. The other ones here, and the other topic is social media.
Wait,
Yeah.
real quick. On the scale, I would say the most first thing that you have to get under wraps on being able to scale, in my opinion, after what we've learned, and it took many years to figure this out, is if you don't know what your gross profit margin is on every given sale, if you don't know those numbers, it's going to take a long time to start to scale. And the reason for that is you're going to have to monitor that so your gross profit margin, not net, gross profit margin over, let's say, a period of 6 months to a year. And if you're finding that you're not accruing, an extra knot of cash to be able to pay for a non-cash, non-producing employee, and what I mean by that, respectfully, is if you got installers and measuring people, but now you're going to the point where you need a bookkeeper, and that bookkeeper is not selling. Okay, so that's what I mean by not bringing cash. Then your gross profit margin better be large enough on these given sales to be able to account for those positions, which are necessary positions in order to scale the business effectively. And so it starts really at the bottom, because even here, I hear, I still go to places where there's other glass guys, and I hear them talk, and I got this number and I double it and I add on 100 for install. That works for that size business. But if you're going to scale the business, especially surgically and like with purpose, you have to know that number. And it's not a number that you're just going to figure out overnight either. If you've been documenting it, then it'll be easier to go back and kind of rationalize where you can start spending money to help scale the business and bring in those positions that aren't just what we all deem as going, measuring and installing. It's a lot of the stuff behind the scenes that's so important to be able to scale a business, because there's just not enough hours in the day. We got 3 people doing glass orders, 4 people doing order entry, and these people never even see a customer. So we better be getting good money on the front end to be able to facilitate those positions and help grow those positions, because those people want to grow too. If they just all get up and quit, we'd be screwed. So the culture is with everybody, but I think it all starts with knowing your number. If you don't know your numbers, you're not going to be able to grow the business as fast as you think you want to grow it. It's not that you can't grow it. It's going to take a lot longer for you to for the light bulb to go off, why am I not able to scale? And it's probably because either you're afraid to raise the prices because you don't want to lose a client, or you don't know how to deliver that negotiation properly. Or you just don't know what they are. We probably went for a good 8 to 10 years not knowing really how to calculate our gross profit margin accurately and effectively. And we made a good hire, and they kind of schooled us up on that. And that was a big catalyst from being able to really start to add on these stores.
Keith, I appreciate that comment. I mean, in terms of gross margin, what is a range? I mean, and I know you guys have a bigger business, and a lot of us have smaller businesses, but what kind of target range do you all think is a healthy gross margin to have?
That's such a tough question to ask based on how large your business is currently versus how big you want it. What I would ask you is, if you know what your current one is now, and you said to yourself, can we afford to add 2 more positions to free up either time for your best sales guy or installer or yourself? Could the business afford that? And you'd say no. Then you need to, how much more do you need to start charging on your gross profit margin to be able to cover that? And again, we found this out after collecting data over years. You start go back and analyzing all these job costing. Dad was real good at that. He job cost the shit out of a job for me, down to the penny. I was kind of just freewheeling from the hip. And then once we really tightened up and started really knowing what the true numbers were in costs, we priced the job at the house, because I didn't want to lose the opportunity while it was hot. And because I knew what all the costs were. He had a little cheat sheet for me. I could figure it out by the time we walked from the bathroom to the kitchen. I already knew what our job cost was. And it's just a matter of pushing a few numbers in the calculator at that point. But what was really cool is once Bill and all I call them penguins, all the suits at the top part of the business, figured out what numbers we needed for the business to continue to operate and grow, they put in a couple percentage kind of buffer on top of that. And that gave the salespeople a little bit of wiggle room. So they didn't have to call us. Not that we don't want people calling us, but when you get 32 salespeople out there and there's only 3 of us, you start getting a lot of phone calls. Hey, can I throw in a free sweep? Can I do this? Can I do that? It was just nonsense. Am I still there?
You are. You're still here.
Yeah. So knowing those numbers allowed us to create kind of a little wiggle room, which empowered the salespeople out at the home, which is a great culture building item, but also freed up a lot of time for us, not having to take a lot of phone calls, over this customer says we can have the job, but we're $20 more than the one down the street, but she really likes my shoes. Can we do it? Like, I don't need to have those phone calls anymore. We trust them. You know what the numbers are. Your bonus is going to be paid out of that. You give away what you want. It just can't go below this certain threshold, because we're not going to let one employee kind of affect the whole company by, just giving away stuff. And so it kind of helped them police each other. And it allowed us to continue to work on other things to continue to scale a business while not having to worry about if, the certain nuts being made every month on the sales, if you will.
And Mike, the other thing you should do is have your accountant find out what your break even is. A break even is take all of your expenses, your gross margins, then look at all your expenses for your net margin and say, okay, I have to do, if I sell at this gross margin profit, how much do I need to sell to break even? In other words, pay everybody, pay my taxes, pay all my costs, and I break even. That's a number, right? Then you say, well, I don't want to do all this work just to break even. I need to sell this much more. Now, do I sell more at the same price, or do I sell the same amount at a higher price? Or do I sell a lot more at a lower price? Those are the things you have to see. Can you handle selling a lot more at a lower price? Do you have the sustainability to do that? Or could you sell less at a higher price? Or are you going to price yourself out of the market and not get jobs? Those are the decisions you need to make of how much you charge, what you need to make to cover all your overheads. Now, you understand there's a difference between fixed costs and unfixed costs, right? Your fixed ones are like your rent, your insurance. No matter how much you sell, your rent's going to be the same, right? So those are easy to calculate. It's the non-fixed costs that are more difficult. If you're going to double your sales, then you need to get how many more employees, how much overtime do you have to pay, those type of things. Every good accountant that's worked themselves, any CPA, can get you what your break even is at the margin that you're selling at.
I had we probably had the best year we ever had this year. And one of the things that I think drove that and when I say we had the best revenue year, but we had the best net profit year we ever had. And one of the things that we did, and it wasn't my idea, just talking with guys and gals like you all, but a year and a half ago, I hired a gal, and I call her a scheduling coordinator. She's kind of morphed into an operations person too. But for years and years, we didn't have a daily, weekly, concrete plan to maximize and get labor efficiency. With her hire, and once she came up, up on plane and understood how we do things, every day the crews have full days. And she knows where gaps are if you pick something up, et cetera. But anyhow, so 2022, that resulted in a tremendous improvement on labor efficiency. Now, we have a long way to go, but that one hire, I was always scared to hire somebody that. I thought, I can't afford them. But she paid for herself over and over and over and over again because she drove that efficiency for us this year. I find all this stuff fascinating, and I appreciate all this, but that was just one little thing that helped us out tremendously.
Like Keith said, the hire that we made with our controller, who's now our CFO, was just life-changing. And first of all, scared the hell out of me, because what they should be getting for money to get a good person was a lot of money. And we really had to think long and hard about it, but it was the best move that we made, because people that are really good at it will identify just by looking at spreadsheets and trends and everything, can calculate. He's been spot on last 4 years in a row within a couple of $1,000. And we're talking about a large amount. And he's been that accurate with his projections. It helps so much. It really helps you grow it into a bigger business. And then that also helps with your purchasing. If you can start purchasing smarter, that's going to bring your cost of goods sold down, which increases your gross profit margin. So, these are a lot of things that we can talk as we go further. I'm looking, it's almost 9:30 already. And it just flew by. Just flew by. Boy, Chris, maybe
Yeah.
we just have to take up on it. I would
Yeah.
encourage anybody to look at what Brandon, maybe Brandon, if you can repost that again this week. And you know, we had 146 votes on it coming into tonight. I would imagine the percentages may stay pretty much in line, but see if there's any other topics. And we can touch on them. And Chris, if you want someone else to do this next week, or you want to continue this, I'm up for it. I think. I'm not sure if Donna's birthday is next week.
Right, I will.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
And we can.
I won't be. I
We
won't
can-
be here next week.
We can pin that post to the top of the group. So
Yeah,
it's-
let's do that. Let's make it an announcement so that people can see it. I mean, there's like, you know, a lot more people who can weigh in. And
I left it open so anyone can fill out anything in there. So I put 4 topics in there just to kind of start it, but anyone can put their own topic in there so everyone can vote on it. So
That's a great idea, Brandon.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Absolutely great idea.
It was phenomenal, and made it such an easy tool to use for this. I wish I had more time to go into the rest of this, but these are the type of topics that Chris wants this to come out to help us all as business owners.
Yeah.
Help all of us.
yeah, and I really like this format too of just having a speaker. And thanks, Bill Dobbin, for doing that tonight. Really appreciate you and all that you bring. I mean, I can't imagine what this group would be like without you. So
You do very well. You've got some amazing talent here. You give the people the opportunity to watch them shine, and they will. We've got
Bill.
a good group here.
that's right. That's right. Well, all right. Well, let's just
Yeah.
keep doing it then. We'll just come back next Wednesday and do it again.